One. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sea of Tranquilities. We are the review crew. I am your host, Jamie Laszlo, and I can't believe we're back. We either did something really good last time or we did just enough to not get canceled by the boss man. But today's crew, look at today's crew. We got Guitar Hack. The hack is back on Sea of Tranquility. We got Eric Porter from In the Prague Seat, and we got Mr. Stephen Reed from In the Prague Seat, the UK Connection, and other things, the review crew. So we got a few things that we want to talk about today, some new releases, some brand new spanking releases, some new singles to releases that aren't even out yet. So I am going to start with Hack and see what he's got for us and see how much he likes it or dislikes it or whatever.
Alrighty. Well, I don't you guys mentioned you had a physical copy of this if you want to show it because I don't.
There you go.
All right. There it is. Ace Frehley, 10,000 volts. Man, this record got a lot of hype. It was the greatest thing since sliced bread, greatest thing since a 78 solo album. How many times have you heard that?
Every album.
Every album, right?
Yes.
It's like, every new Kiss release was the next Destroyer, right? Same deal, right? So I don't own a physical copy, and I don't plan on owning a physical copy. If that kind of lets you know where I stand with this record. So I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna say it's terrible, completely terrible, because it's not. It does have some highlights. Um, and I mean, this was him getting together with Steve Brown of Trickster, and he's worked with a bunch of other people. And this is basically Steve Brown had 95% of the tracks, and Ace just contributed here and there. And it's definitely him singing on every song. Steve's doing a ton of background vocals. A lot of the rhythm guitars are Steve Brown, but you can hear Ace throwing his solos here and there. It's a real poppy sounding record. Everything is very sort of in a 3 to 4 minute package. It's all very tight. Guitar solos are very tight. There's only one solo that he actually extends a bit. I think it's the blinded solo, I think. But it's very tight, very concise, very hooky, lots of hooks. Everything is a hook in this. The verses are just build up to the hooks, the pre-choruses. Everything's all about the hook on this. Guitars sound great, production sounds great. So why am I not a huge fan? Couple things. The vocals. Ace was never a great singer, and on this record, because it is such a poppy record and it has that ability to kind of, everything kind of is there, but it's the vocals really detract from it. But again, not on all the songs. 10,000 volts, great. Ace solo, concise, typical thing that he plays, typical stuff you've heard before, but it works. 10,000 volts is a great song. Walking on the Moon, okay? I don't like the song to begin with, but his vocals just really, really drag it down. They got him singing in a lower register. I understand they tune the guitars down a full step for his voice, but man, it just doesn't work for me. Cosmic Heart, it's got a great riff, very heavy riff. Sounds like they're using an octave pedal on that riff. Riff is great, but the song itself not so hot. Cherry Medicine, that is probably one of the hookiest songs on here. It's got a really hooky chorus, but the singing of the verses leading up to it just kill the song. It just kills it. I mean, and in the hands of a really good vocalist, that song could have been on the radio. I don't know if it'll make it to the radio. Back Into My Arms Again, an old song of his, very melodic. But again, the vocals kill it. And here's the other thing too. That song, if you listen to it, it's very melodic, and it really has I'm waiting for the big, because it's got a kind of an 80s thing. I'm waiting for the big 80s guitar solo to kind of just transport this thing. And it's so disappointing what he plays on this. It's abbreviated and it's just not very good. Ace doesn't really fly much on this record. I mean, it's very, very sparse places, but as a whole, he just doesn't really fly. There you go. Fighting for Life, best song on here. Heavy, He's singing in an upper register, so his vocals actually sound good on this. Great tune, definitely the best song on here. Then you got Blinded. Blinded's growing on me a little bit. The solo on that's not bad. Big chunky chords, like a lot of it. Sounds great. Constantly cute. I'll stop right there. Life of a Stranger. Cover, again, it's a departure from the rest of it. It's kind of a slower, kind of got a little bit of a bluesy feel. Man, you're waiting for this intense solo to just sort of kick in and transport, and it's not there. Again, it's so disappointing, you know. Up in the Sky to me is filler. It's just filler, not very good. And Stratosphere, I mean, that's Steve Brown playing all the. You can tell it's him playing the acoustic guitar because it's too clean sounding. Ace has got a very heavy hand. Just listen to King is Khan. And in when he does come in and play licks here and there, I don't know, man. It's just it does, that song does absolutely nothing for me. So I mean, it's not like the whole thing is terrible. It does have its moments, but as a whole, it's not great. I mean, Anomaly for me is his last pretty good record. Not a great record, but a good record. Much better than this because it's rawer. You can tell it's Ace. It's his riffs. His vocal, he sounds better on that. The instrumentals on that, Genghis Khan, even Space Bear. It's got that amazing off time, on time thing with Anton and 3/4 of the way through. That's just incredible. Anyway, but this is, a lot of hype, but
What do you think is
doesn't
his
do it very
best solo album, not including the 78 solo?
well.
The on the spot.
It would probably be a toss up between
Trouble Walking?
Trouble Walking and Anomaly. But you know what? I may actually lean a little bit more to Anomaly because Trouble Walking, some of the songs are just half baked.
Well, he was
Anomaly's
too.
got,
He was probably half baked too. So
yeah, Anomaly's got some filler in it. It could have been stripped down. They could have easily taken a couple of tunes off of that, made it a little tighter.
I think all his
But I
albums
mean,
have filler except for the 78. So,
yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. But yeah, I would say all in all, probably Anomaly. I
I
mean,
don't
I'm not including the Frehley's Comet stuff. The first Frehley's Comet album was very good too, right?
That's what I
But
was going to
again,
say. I was going to say that's where I would go. But
I'm
when you
counting
class that
that.
as a
Yeah, I would
solo album,
count that.
yeah, yeah. So maybe Frehley's Comet, then Anomaly, the first Frehley's Comet.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't mind this as much as you. I do hear what you're hearing in the voice. I hear effects on the voice when he's singing, and I hear a little bit of slur, like on the last Ozzy record, a little bit of that older, I'm getting old slur in the vocals. But I'm telling you, if he would have recorded this album just in 2010, I think it would have been a lot better. Just him, just a
Yep.
little bit younger. But I don't mind it. What do you think, Stephen?
yeah, I don't mind it. It's not the most ringing of endorsements, is it?
Mm.
Yeah, the hype was massive. Did I believe the hype? I mean, I've bought it, but that doesn't say that I believe the hype. It just means that I'm gullible. Um, yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's one of these albums where somebody else appears to be steering the ship. And I don't think there's been any hiding from that. Ace has been quite upfront that Steve Brown's a really strong hand in that. I don't really have an issue with that, other than it feels in places it's a little bit like it's been written to order. It's like somebody sat down and thought, how would I write an Ace Frehley album? And that's what we've ended up with. So we end up with songs that feel kind of right. They feel kind of Ace Frehley. They don't really have that kind of heart. They don't really have that kind of loose soul that Frehley brings to his best material. It actually feels, if anything, a little too tight and organised, and that kind of goes counter to what makes Ace Frehley Ace Frehley. He's a great guitarist that isn't a great guitarist because he's loose, he's got feel, he's got emotion. That's what all these best moments are about. I don't hear an awful lot of that on here, and that's something that Hack says. The solos are kind of short and concise. Some of the vocals, oh, mean, the vocals on
Yeah.
Cherry Medicine,
Medicine. Yeah.
yeah, it's really quite a tough listen in places. And yet, things like Back in My Arms, which, yes, I have an old demo of that, and it's not as good as the old demo because, well, I've got an emotional connection with that too. But at least to hear it given a proper airing is a good thing. It feels a little bit like it doesn't belong on the album because it has a different feel and a different tone. But some of it's good, yeah. I mean, 10,000 Volts is good.
That's a
Life
good
of a
song.
Stranger. It's very up and down, is what it is. When it's good, it's good. When it's not,
Yeah.
it's not. There's not enough of it that's great, to be honest with you. So,
Shouldn't
yeah.
I mean, like, it's ironic because, like, I mean, I should preface this that I'm not saying this because I don't, I'm a huge Ace Frehley fan. Okay, he's why I play. You can't see it in the show. Yeah, I can't see it. That's why I play these things, right? Like, I love Ace Frehley, right? And
Even's got an
you
Ace Frehley poster on his wall still at his age.
yeah,
And,
I
and
mean,
also, it's for second sighting. It's not even a good album.
Yeah, I know. It's second sighting. The one no one talks about.
so it isn't it ironic? Like, I mean, with an Ace Frehley album, what do you want to hear? You want to hear Ace Frehley playing, and his solos are so, like, okay, look, you got 4 bars in and out, like, there, you want to hear him expand, maybe flesh them out a little bit. There's a couple of solos that you could tell that, man, there's, like, they were leading, he was building to something, and then, okay, hold that last note, we're out, like, give me a little more. There's only one song that he actually goes a second round, and it's, man, like that's what would have made it an Ace Frehley record. Maybe less singing and more guitar playing, maybe more soloing, and all the fills. If you listen to the fills, I don't think it's him playing any fill. I think it's just him in that featured spot in the middle of the song, and maybe a little bit on the tag out, and that's it. And just very small, like very little tiny sections.
Yeah,
I'm
and
out
the
of
band are
guitars.
tight. Do you know the band are tight? I mean, it is a good unit that they've put together here, but material's not the best. And I actually like some of the latter day Trickster albums. I'll put myself out there and say that some of those albums are pretty decent. I mean, they are what they are, but I quite like them. But this is, as I say, written to order for my money. This is somebody that sat down and said, I'm going to write these songs for that guy. And it's a decent fist at that, but I'm not a fan of that as an idea.
Yeah.
Eric, not a fan of Ace Frehley?
I love Ace Frehley, but in terms of his solo career, I can't say I'm a follower. I'm more of a Kiss Frehley guy than a solo Frehley guy.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what do you got for us, Eric? I hear you got a couple things you want to talk about.
I do. Well, first, I want to congratulate you guys on the show. I think it's a great concept, putting out some newer music and hopefully getting people to listen. And with Steven, I just wanted to let everyone know who's watching, check out the webzine. I think Simon Bray writes, Steven writes, I write reviews, Pete puts out, I think there's 7 or 8, maybe 10 total, Steven. So I hope people will check out the reviews because Pete puts a lot of work into the website too, as much as he does with YouTube. I don't know how he finds the time. But yeah, exactly. Who knows?
I'm swamped with my one little show I got. How he does it with 17 different shows.
Exactly.
No fucking clue.
My first review is this is actually one that Pete sent me to review. It's Benjamin Croft. The title of it is We Are Here to Help. And he is I believe from the UK keyboardist. And not that this means anything, but let me give you a few names he's got playing with him. Greg Howe, Frank Gambale, Mike Stern, Marco Miniman, who I'll talk about in a minute, Simon Phillips, Billy Sheehan, Stuart Ham, and Jeff Scott Soto. So you've got an amazing cast here. And I love this guy's, he uses the vintage keyboards. So people who are into that, the Hammonds, the Fender Rhodes, I'd kind of say it's kind of a mix of maybe symphonic prog. There's a little bit of fusion in here. Very melodic, lyrical. He just makes some great choices. And I think what I really like about this is he has a lot of guests on it. I think he's done all the writing. But when he asks these guys to play, kind of what you guys were just talking about with Frehley. So it's not, hey, 4 bars, Mike, I want you on my record and get out. He lets these guys do what they do, which is fantastic. And it's split. It's 8 songs, 4 instrumental, 4 vocals. As people who watch me on the prog seat, I tend to tag on the vocals a little bit. But I do want to make mention of, he's got a female vocalist on here on 2 tracks, Lindsay Ward, who's absolutely, I love her voice, very ethereal quality to her voice. But I would say at the same time, it's powerful. It may not be that ripping kind of a voice, but when you're kind of in that ethereal zone, but yet projecting, I think she's got an amazing voice. But, you know, with this cast of musicians, just really, really good. If you like melodic symphonic stuff with a little bit of playing in there, obviously mentioning the instrumentals, I think this would be right up your alley. I do want to make mention too, I'm not familiar with this guitarist, but some of you may know him. Per Nilsson, I believe is his name. Swedish guitar player. He's played with Kayapa, Scar Symmetry, and I read that he was a touring guitarist for Masaga at a certain period. This guy's phenomenal. I mean, when you're playing with guys like Greg Howe, who's one of my personal favorites, Frank Gambale, he really impressed me. But I think, again, a lot of melody. If you're into that symphonic kind of proggy sound, great keyboards. The guy's a tremendous keyboard player. I would highly recommend this. I actually have a review out on the site for this one already and gave it 4 stars. So I really enjoyed it. I know he's got a few others. I think Pete reviewed his previous release. I think he's got 3 studio albums. So check him out, Benjamin Croft. And my second is one that just came out, and I did mention Marco Miniman, who played on that one. It's the new one from the Aristocrats, Duck. And just if you like that cover art, that is actually the artist Lance Ayres, who did Space Jam. So he did the cover art for this. You might find this interesting that it's a instrumental concept album. And I don't know if I have the story right, but it's about a duck. So I don't know if obviously there's a sense of humor here with these guys.
Oh, yeah.
And just a little blurb is it's a duck who apparently is, I got to read this because I can't even remember it, fleeing a penguin policeman from the Antarctic islands, making his way to New York City, where he has considerable misadventures waiting for him. So I can't tell you I got much of a concept from listening to this, obviously an all instrumental band, but what I will say is I have a bunch of Aristocrats albums, and Guthrie Govan, the guitar player, is absolutely stunning. As a trio, these guys are completely locked in. It kind of blows my mind listening to them, how good they are. But I think people tend to hear that and think that there's no songs behind it, that these guys are just out to show off their chops. I really, and especially if you're listening to Marco Miniman and Brian Beller, the bass player, these guys are locked in. It's intricate, but you know, I've played this a number of times and I'm hearing these songs. It's not, you know, play the disc and then it's kind of out of your head and you got to go back. I really, really have enjoyed this. I did just submit something to Pete for the website, and I've got to say the first 3 songs are absolute knockouts. If you want to get punched in the face right out of the gate, they do it with the top 3, but there's really no momentum loss for this. It's about an hour, a little under an hour, I think, for the entire record. Just absolutely blown me away. I've had it for about a week, and I think it's probably my favorite Aristocrats record already. So
How many
I'm
they
gonna
have?
go with I'm sorry?
How many do they have?
5, I think this is our
Okay.
5th studio. They have a couple live albums as well. And I do want to make a quick mention to a couple of the names, because I obviously with the duck theme, it's kind of funny. We've got Sitting with a Duck on a Bay. A little nod to Genesis with and then there were just us and Duck's End. So I'm assuming they're throwing a little nod to Genesis there with that. But these guys obviously have a sense of humor, which I do think you hear in their music. And again, you know, you might think humor, Zappa, and you get the lyrics, but these guys really give off that vibe with their music. It's very playful, very up tempo. I'd even say go out and check out Aristoclub. It almost sounds like a club track, a rocking club track. So don't let that scare you. But I could hear that being played like in a dance club. It's just an infectious groove. But these guys rock. You're not going to find better musicians than these guys. So go check it out. The Aristocrats Duck.
All right.
Cool.
That guitarist, did he play with Steven Wilson?
He did. He was
what I
on the
thought.
Raven. I think he cannot erase too, right, Steven? He was
Yeah,
on that one as
correct.
well. And that's where him and I think Miniman met up, and then kind of got this going, or maybe it was previous, and they, but both of them had played with Steven Wilson.
All right.
They are phenomenal live too, if you ever get the chance.
You know
Don't
what?
miss it.
They played about 3 years ago in a small place here in Columbus, about as big as my basement. And I was thinking of going, you know, it's like a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night, and it's hard to get out of the house at my age on those work nights. It is.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen, what'd you bring us?
Okay, so a slight change of pace. I have got Stand United by Firewind.
That's got to be power metal, right?
It's power metal. This is Greek power metal. Yes, absolutely. Okay, there are now 4 guys in the band. Okay, so this is the band of Gus G, who people will know from Firewind, Dream Evil, and also one album with Ozzy. He was on the Scream album. This is Firewind's 10th studio album and their second since they slimmed down to a 4-piece. They've had a variety of configurations through the years, and quite a few different members, but they parted with Bob Katsonis 2 albums ago. He was the keyboard player, and it kind of changed the album that came out 2 years ago, which was the self-titled album. It was a bit more straightforward, a bit more riff focused. I mean, they're a European power metal band, it's all riff focused, but they've kind of brought the keyboards back a little bit this time, which I quite like. The rest of the band is Herbie Langens on vocals. Why did I choose a Greek band? Petros Christodoulidis, that's not bad actually, on bass, and Johan Nunez on drums. And those last 2 guys have been with Firewind for a long, long time. There's a kind of theme that runs through the songs. The album is called Stand United, and it's all about, you know, trying to get through the tough times, staying united, being a unit. And that really is the theme of the album. The whole thing, though, is really just a whole load of fun. If you like European power metal, there are different strands. There's kind of the very serious stuff that takes itself really seriously. And then there's a lot of it that's a bit light and throwaway for me. This lands right in the middle. For me, it's the sweet spot. It's catchy, it's hook-laden, it's memorable, and yet it is heavy. There are lots of riffs. And Gus G is a great guitar player, so the solos are really on the money. The guy knows how to play, but he's sympathetic too. This is not a kind of, you know, look at me project. This is one of these bands where it just so happens that the main guy in it is a guitar player who is pretty phenomenal. He's not afraid to let you know that. He's got his ego's in check enough that it's not about that. And I really like that. I like the title track, Stand United. That's one of the highlights. There's kind of clever tempo changes in that. Really keeps you locked in. There's a different kind of tone and feel to some of the riffs on that song. That's really, really good. I like Talking in Your Sleep. That's one of the ones that's a little bit more fun, a little bit more keyboard driven. It is actually a cover of the Romantics hit
I
from
was
the
going to ask
80s.
that.
That's exactly what it is. So you know that's going to be a little bit cheesy. And Firewind do have previous for this. They've done Maniac before and various things like that. But they make it their own. If you didn't know it was a cover, you might suspect it when you hear it. There is a little bit of a difference. It is a little bit more obvious in its hooks and various things like that. But they do it well. And you can't help but kind of smile as you listen to it. However, it's really an album that's kind of about songs like The Power Lies Within, which is a bit of a stomping beast. Then you get that kind of melodic bombast in Destiny is Calling, which reminds me of Eden's Curse. If anybody out there remembers Eden's Curse, they were a kind of multinational European power melodic rock band I really liked. I wish they would come back. I like Paul Logue, the guy that was behind them. And then you get things like the more impassioned Days of Grace. So this is really strong. I really like this. I've liked Firewind all the way through. We did an album ranking on one of the early UK connections. And really, I mean, there's been, I think, 4 or 5 different singers now. Umpteen different people have come and gone from the backing band. But they've always managed to maintain a standard where it never dips and it never kind of drops below, being really engaging and obvious without being hackneyed. There's no great surprises in Firewind. You're never going to think, wow, they're doing that now. But they're one of those bands that just do something really well and they play to their strengths all the time. And you can't go wrong with that. So Stand United is I think it's one of the maybe top 3 releases for me at the moment. And I like the band a lot. So yeah, it's a really strong one. If you like this kind of thing, I think you're going to like this album a lot.
How long have they been around?
Oh, wow. They've been around for really quite a long time. The debut goes right back to 2002.
Oh, okay.
So they've been around a long time. And then obviously you had that stint with Ozzy on the Scream album. And that was a bit of a shame for me because the album itself isn't great. I don't know if he was kind of the right fit for the band at that stage. Ozzy maybe wasn't in the strongest point of his career at that point either. And it felt like a bit of a missed opportunity. And I think it made Firewind stall as well, somewhat. So it didn't really work for anyone in that sense. But it's not a bad album. It just doesn't necessarily feel like an Ozzy album in that sense. And that maybe derailed Firewind a little bit too. So it's good to see them back. The last couple of albums have been really strong. I prefer this over the self-titled one from 2 years ago because this one has a little bit more colour. It has a little bit more fun about it. It's as heavy, but it's not necessarily as single-minded. There's a little bit more variance as you go from song to song, which is always a good thing.
All right. Cool. Well, I guess that goes to me now. I'm actually going to talk about an album that Ken Golden brought up on the Professor's Picks. Look at me getting a little proggy. Oh, this is almost like in the prog seat, mini style with hat. This band is called Monkey 3. Monkey 3. Who? Monkey 3. What album? It's called Welcome to the Machine. Release date? Last Friday. Well, if you're seeing this on Saturday, 8 days ago. From where? They're from Switzerland, where all the good rock music comes from. What do they play? Proggy psychedelic space rock. And they're for fans of Pink Floyd, in a big way, Hawkwind, and Porcupine Tree. What do they look like? Because I believe you can kind of get a feel for the band by the way they look. There they are. No Spring Chickens. They were formed in 2001. So they've been around. They've been cutting their teeth a while. I think this is their 7th album. And I bought the album they released before this one called Sphere. Because this was like 2019. I sampled it on YouTube. You know, I'm always sampling shit out there on the internet. Normally within 10 seconds, I can tell that shit. Oh, that one might be good. And this was good. Now they do instrumental rock. So there's no vocals. So Sphere was solid. And I don't buy a lot of instrumental rock albums. But when I heard about the new one coming out, I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me see where they're going. I started late with this band. I never got the earlier ones, but let me continue on their journey with their next album. So I got Monkey 3, Welcome to the Machine. And you're like, why are they calling it Welcome to the Machine? That's very Pink Floydish. Well, there's a lot of Pink Floyd inspiration on this album. Maybe some people would just call it copying. I don't know. You hear bits of echoes. You hear bits of Welcome to the Machine. And you hear one song actually sounds a lot like Time on Dark Side of the Moon. You hear the drumming on it. But I'll tell you what, the drumming on this album is something else. I can't remember the last time I heard drumming that kicks you in the ass like this. This is so well produced. But the first song comes in, and it's I should say Boris is, they all go by their first name. And it's very small and it's kind of dark in here. But Boris is the guitarist. And he's on this album, he sounds like David Gilmour, but a little bit more heavy, thicker, crunchier. But he's got the style of David Gilmour going. And when the very first song, Ignition, starts, it's kind of like sound effects, moodiness. And then when the song hits, yeah, you kind of expect the explosion to happen in your living room, like pyrotechnics, like the band just hit the stage or something, because it smacks you in the face. And then at the end, the drumming's kicking your ass the whole time. And then at the end of the song, it kicks you when you're down. It's like, how you like that? How you like that? Dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. You're like, holy crap, I guess it's the end of that song. And then the next song is called Collision. Big riffs. There's a lot of screaming guitars on here. If you're one of those guys who say, I don't like new rock because it's always compressed, it's always sounds crappy, and there's no guitar solos, this is for you then. The next track is called Kali Yuga, and it's a builder. It just builds and builds and builds until you're kind of lost in this sea of acoustic guitars and electric guitars. And you're, for that's another thing about this album. A lot of times I get bored with instrumental albums. You're never bored on this album. Kind of like, to go back to Pink Floyd, kind of like Animals, where there's long passages of no vocals, but you're never bored with Animals, are you? No, never bored with this either. Then there's only 5 songs. Rackman and Collapse. Rackman has those drums, man, that just kicks you in the ass. And then Collapse has that's the song with those dun, 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 time influences from Pink Floyd. You'll hear Pink Floyd throughout this album, little things here and there. So yeah, it's for me, I cannot believe that I have 10 new albums that I've heard so far this year. So far, this is on top of the pack, and it's an instrumental album, which it's really weird year for me, because I probably buy an instrumental album. If I do it once a year, that's a lot. So far, I bought 3. I got Quillen, which Pete reviewed. Very good stoner rock. And I got Concealed Elephant, KM, HP, and BO. This is good. This is better. This is top shelf. I'm not going to call it stoner rock. It is kind of stoner rock, but it's not the stoner rock like you think of with like fuzzy guitars and stuff. This is clean produced. So, on a rock and roll report card, songwriting B+. Why B+? Because of those Pink Floyd copying moments. But the ideals that they swirl around the copying are really good. They really put thought onto these songs and constructing them. This ain't a jam band. Production A+. If you ever wanted to know what it sounded like, if Alan Parsons produced a heavy rock album, that's what this sounds like. Musicianship A. I'm not going to give it an A+ because you got to have something reserved for the Jimi Hendrixes of the world. So A. Vocals incomplete, but that's okay. You never miss the vocals on this album, and it's like 40 minutes long, so it's not overly long. You can play it over and over. You remember the guitar parts kind of like you remember vocals. So,
but Jamie, you could give them an A for vocals because they made a decision
not to have vocals,
which sometimes is a smart move.
Yeah, vocals would have got in the way on this album. Every time they would have came in, you would have said, "Oh, I was really liking the song."
Yeah.
So yeah.
Can we have a subsection though, Jamie? Because it really is a pet hate of mine when bands don't tell you their second name.
Yeah, I know.
They don't. Boris. Boris who? He could be Boris anybody.
Yeah.
Why do bands do that? Did they think Boris, it makes them like your friend?
And one guy doesn't even have a name. He just has 2 letters. DB. Lowercase d, capital B is his name.
So I'm assuming, Jamie,
and he's on acoustic guitars and keys. So there's 2 guys playing guitar.
I was going to ask you what they were. So there's two guitar players, bass and drums, and there were some keys on that record
Yes.
then too. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Give it that spaciness. But this
Right.
Walter guy on drums
Okay.
will kick your ass, man. It's the production, probably the production more than his playing and where they're placed and what he's doing, I guess. I'm not going to say he's Neil Peart or anything, but what he does, man, and how it sounds. Shakes the walls.
What's his name? Walter, did you say?
Walter, yes.
We've got Boris and we've got Walter. So the people who didn't want their name on the album have to have more boring names than Boris and Walter.
Maybe this is the guy from the David Lee Roth video, Grown Up. I don't know.
Apologies to anyone watching.
Was that Walter in that video?
Walter.
Get in, Waldo.
Waldo.
Right.
Yeah.
We've actually been talking about them, Jamie. They've come through our prog seat discussion. That band. So I don't know who's checked them out yet, but they've been talking
to the new one. It's great. I've been listening to it all week. What else do I got on this TV? Oh, songs to check out. First song, Ignition and Kali Yuga, track 3. Check them all out. But if you want to just YouTube something, do track 1 or track 3 first. And let's talk about singles that are floating out there, because there's singles out there that are floating around. We want to stay on top of everything. These albums aren't out yet, but I've been listening to them. Case of the singles. See what I did there? I got a case of this. Anyways, Like Father, Like Son, Rotting Christ. I think their best days are probably behind them, but it's not bad for 2024 Rotting Christ. I always said Rotting Christ is like the death metal you can dance to. They got a dance beats to them. It's really cool. Early Moods, a newer band, kind of like a Black Sabbath-ish kind of band. I actually have tickets to see them in a month. A Sinner's Past. These guys, normally these bands get a little bit more, I don't know, not going to say radio friendly, but they don't become heavier as they go on. Sounds like these guys might be getting heavier on their third album. So Supernatural by Blue Oyster Cult. Now they're re-recording some lost gems for a new album coming out. What's it going to be called? Ghost Stories? I wish I liked this song better. Have you guys heard it? I wish I liked it better.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I'm hoping it's one of those times where they've chosen the wrong song to lead to the album.
And it works better on the album, maybe in track 5 or something with what comes before and after. We'll see.
Yeah.
Wanting and Waiting, Black Crowes. I'm wanting and waiting for that album, man. No doubt. That sounds great. Love the little organ on that song. It sounds like old school Black Crowes. Caught in the Treads, Gatecreeper. More death metal. Pretty good. I think these guys are from like Utah or something. This will be their 3rd album. It's like Pantera, groove metal with more growly vocals. All you guys would like that one. Check that one out. Dark Matter, another one for you guys. Pearl Jam, good solid Pearl Jam song. Not going to win over any new fans whatsoever, but it's not going to turn anyone off either. Good solid song. Same thing with High on Fire's Burning Down. Good solid song. Not going to win over any new fans, but not going to turn off anybody either. Woo! All kinds of new music out there. And I got a request from a friend of mine, Marco Doria, over on the Contrarians. You know, Marco, he really did a lot for me in the early days of my YouTube career. I use the term career loosely because I don't get paid for this shit. But you know what I'm talking about. Yep. He really helped me out here and there. And he would edit my videos with him and make me look smarter than I am. But he actually did a documentary. He directed it and everything. It's called Standing on the Firing Line, and he sent me a copy. Well, he texted me and said, if I send you a copy, will you review my movie? And the first thing I thought of naturally is, oh, fuck, please don't suck. Because I don't want to lie, and I don't want to hurt feelings. And I'll be like, do I lie? Do I hurt feelings? Do I lie? Thank God it's good. It's Standing on the Firing Line, the story of Mystique. And Mystique is like this very small, unknown band from the 80s. And they're kind of hair metal-ish, but not really hair metal-ish. They kind of got power metal and prog metal in them. You know, sometimes I hear like Rush Fly By Night on their one and only album they ever released. There was an EP called Black Rider. and you see the cover, and it's very simple. It looks like something drawn on the back of someone's notebook. And if you can find a copy, it goes for like $500 to $800 these days. So they kind of got that little cult following now that people kind of search for that album. And they released a demo tape after that. So these guys, they never released a full album, but they worked their asses off. And they actually had Tora Tora, Walking Shoes Tora Tora, open up for them on a few shows. So this is a great, just, story in time. I'm sure there were 1,000 stories like this, bands working their asses off and not making it. Marco just caught this story to represent all those stories. And I'll be honest, I went on YouTube and listened to this band, their EP. I don't like it, but that's not the point. That makes it even better. You don't have to even like heavy metal to like this movie. You're watching these guys, and even though we know how it turns out, you're still kind of rooting for them, And at the end of the movie, I was like, that album goes for $500. Part of me was like, pick that up just to have it, even though I don't like it, just because of the collector. But I didn't, and I won't. But it put the thought in my head. This movie put the thought in my head for a second. So yes, very entertaining. Thank God. And you can see, if you can see them, photo shoot. That was at their moment when they were really trying to do the hair metal scene. The problem was they didn't make it yet. And that was 1987, where you had to have made it to look like that, because in a couple years that looks going down. So yeah, you had to be Dokken at that moment, or someone established. You couldn't go, here we are. Too late, dude. It's like going to a party and having your third beer when everyone else is on their 13th. It doesn't work that way. So, but go check it out. Oh, and if you want to get yourself a copy, I know they're on sale. I don't know if they still are, but go to www.mystique/black-rider-online-store. Freeze me. Write that down. All right. So here's my favor to Marco, but it is really good. And I think that's a wrap on this show, too. Holy cow. I feel like I've been talking for an hour.
Cool.
So if we didn't screw up, we'll be back in 2 weeks with a new crew. So, I don't have my my thing to read. So let me try to memorize it. Let me get this straight. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. All together, all the damn time. And don't forget to hit that like button and notification bell so you get alerted to all our content. And there's a Ko-Fi link that you can hit to give us money. Give Pete money to keep the channel going. Or there is a, what's that thing called where Pete jumps out of a cake in a bikini and says, birthday to you? Cameo, yes.
Cameo.
Click on Cameo and Pete will sing happy birthday to you like you're Kennedy and he's Marilyn Monroe. So
you may have oversold that. I think you've oversold that.
Do you? Yeah, throw him a couple extra bucks. He might do that. So until next time, we will see you then. Everyone say bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.